you believe in Tangled Up? I mean, would you extra believe in it if I talked about the Hansel and Gretel stories that are also on this DVD? No? Okay, fine then! Hansel and Gretel is the timeless tale of how it's never too late to throw your kids in the woods if you regret having them. If you remember my Tangled Up video, which I mean of course you do, you'll recall that the Hansel and Gretel stories made up the hungry or witched witches side of that release.
The story of Hansel and Gretel comes from a German collection of folk and fairy tales by the Brothers Grimm.
Of course, the Tangled Up release excluded the Pat Morita bit, so it was complete garbage and Disney sued because they were so angry about this. Or they were angry about the cover, and Disney destroyed Brightspark, leading us to this Disney monopoly hell we all live in, or something.
Do you believe in witches?
Yup.
Well, to tell you the truth, neither do I.
Oh, yeah, I meant I don't. That'd be silly.
Witches? Nasty people who cook little children and eat them up?
Not all witches, Pat.
Ah, but in Germany, they told the story of Hansel and Gretel, two children just like you.
I'm two children?
Who almost became a witch's supper. A witch's supper. Supper.
A woodcutter lived in the forest in Germany with his two children. Sadly, the children's mother was dead.
She died of plot convenience-itis.
Their stepmother did not love them.
Yeah, well, to be fair to her, it would be hard to love those little SOBs. So just like with a lot of fairy tales, we've got an evil step-parent, because step-parents are always evil! Hansel and Gretel is another story too that had the step part added later, as earlier versions had the evil mother as the children's birth mother.
Listen to me, husband. If we share our food with Hansel and Gretel, we'll all die.
What?
Woodcutter 316 says...
What?
We should keep all the food for ourselves. It makes sense.
Yeah, it kinda does. She's right.
Take Hansel and Gretel deep into the woods and leave them there.
They decide to make the evil mom extra blatant in this cartoon, as she usually suggests this just to her husband and the kids happen to overhear it rather than her just saying, let's leave them to die right in front of their faces.
Give them each a crust of bread, but leave them there.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to be cruel. Give them a crust of bread to choke on before they slowly die or are eaten.
That's a crazy idea. Now, I have to be gone a few days. And while I'm gone, I expect you to be their mother.
I know you just suggested throwing the kids in the woods, but I'm going to leave you with them for days. I trust that'll go swimmingly.
Goodbye, Hansel. Goodbye, Gretel.
Forever, probably, but if I don't see the kid tossing, it's not my fault.
Leave us in the woods all night? Remember, Gretel, I've got a plan.
Well, that plan didn't work out. So, unsurprisingly, Bad Mom immediately enacts plan for his kid drop, but Hansel gathers up some pebbles beforehand so that they'll have a trail to lead back to the house. You might be a bit confused here, thinking, I thought it was supposed to be breadcrumbs they used to form a trail. Well, in the original story, they did this twice. It's not hard to see why a lot of adaptations later on would just drop the pebble trail part, as it's just a bit repetitive. Also, kinda seems a bit silly for Hansel and Gretel to just go back home after being dropped in the woods and expect, oh, you found your way back? Well, I guess we'll never try to get rid of you again!
Now wait right here. I'm going to go chop some wood.
Even though your father is the woodcutter, I'm gonna go chop wood by myself! That doesn't seem odd. So, yeah, of course, the father was originally a part of this plan in the story.
So long, kids! Yeah. Enjoy your new home!
But I guess they thought that made him a bit too evil as well, even though him just skipping town during it either makes him super naive or just a big wiener who wanted his wife to deal with the problem children. I mean, as far as evil laughs go, I'm kinda with her on that.
Look, the trail of pebbles we left behind. If we follow them, we'll find our way back home.
Why'd Hansel say that like it was a revelation? That was his plan, wasn't it? So the kids came back the very next day. The kids came back. She thought they were goners, but the kids came back. They just couldn't stay away.
Out you go!
I don't know what I expected.
In the original versions, the father is happy the kids made it back when his wife says, "Hey, we still have a supply issue, so we gotta get rid of them again." And he's all, "Well, shucks, guess you're gonna die after all, kids."
Here's a crust of bread for you, Hansel, and a blanket for you, Gretel.
When she's just blatantly trying to kill them, I guess it's pretty good they got anything out of her. This is, of course, when Hansel activates Plan Trail Back to Home Part 2, the Dumber Edition. Because who would have ever thought that food might disappear in the woods? You'd think the stupid kids would have just gotten some new stones before Operation Hope Evil Mom is so impressed she was thwarted she doesn't just try to get rid of them again.
Hansel, look! Those birds are eating all the breadcrumbs.
Uh-oh.
SpaghettiOs! So, for some reason, the witch is just wandering around the woods at night, and that's how Hansel and Gretel find her house made of sweets in this one, which are apparently electrified sweets.
I'm gonna try some.
Me too!
Huh? Well, hello, my little darlings.
Nah, I don't get it. Guess you had to be there.
We don't talk to strangers.
Yeah, we keep our conversation to our trustworthy family.
Come on, Gretel. She seems nice.
I mean, she's an insane blue woman, but we can't hold that against her.
I may not see very well.
I guess that explains that outfit. This witch is quite the looker, though, as her hair is apparently just a weird top knot. This Hansel and Gretel witch is a real ball-tard.
She fattened them for her stew.
What are you gonna do?
The witch liked to eat plump little boys best of all. One night, Hansel couldn't sleep.
Oh, why? Is he stressed about something?
Hansel, are you crying?
No.
Well, stop it. It makes me feel funny.
I'm trying to have a nice kidnapping over here. The sooner you're eaten, the better. So since the witch's eyesight is poor, in a lot of versions of the story, Hansel tricks the witch into thinking he's not getting fattened up by holding out a bone from his cage when the witch pops by to check the Hansel fatness level. You'd think she might notice that the finger she's feeling doesn't have any flesh on it. Guess her sense of touch isn't much good either. I guess the bone in the cage must be from a previous victim, so that's nice.
Say hi to your other brother and sister.
Other brother and sister.
The witch must be a really messy eater, though, for a bone to end up back in the cage after she took out, cooked, and ate whoever was in the cage before Hansel.
Could you clean away that burnt crust way back in the oven?
Real oversight on the witch's part to not be fattening up both kids the whole time when she quickly decides that Gretel would also make for a nice happy meal. Then again, the witch could probably lay off the children's stew a bit and just eat her own candy. The children's stew doesn't seem to be agreeing with her all that much anyway.
Just climb in.
How? Show me. Then I'll do it.
You're a stupid girl, aren't you? Aha! You're trying to trick me into the oven instead of you, huh?
Ooh, what a twist. This is, of course, where Gretel normally tricks the witch into the oven and burns her alive. I guess even Britannica knew how obvious this was and decided to change it up a little.
Well, you're the one going in the oven. No! No, children's stew, nothing better.
I've changed my mind. I like being children's stew.
Well, at least stop basting yourself.
I don't smell any girl cooking.
Oh, it's hot in here, Witchy. I'm cooking real good.
Well, those certainly sound like the calm words of someone currently being burnt alive. I'll trust that. Gretel frees Hansel and they tag team the witch right into the oven.
I couldn't be in more pain!
Is Suzanne ready yet?
Just give her another 20 minutes.
But the concert's at 8.
I guess she was a load-bearing witch, because with her gone, the house comes crashing down and it hurts inside. a chance! Give the top knot CPR! Ah, shucks.
Hansel! Gretel!
I knew an exploding candy house in the woods had to be you two. The lazy father just showing up does help speed up the ending, as originally Hansel and Gretel have to track back themselves even though their path is now gone. There's also a part where a duck gives them a ride across a pond for some reason. It's really kinda odd. This duck just gives them a ride and then nothing eventful happens. You'd think this would mean that Hansel and Gretel were on the wrong path too, since they didn't encounter this body of water going to the witches in the first place, but nope!
As for the stepmother, after the woodcutter found out what she had done, he sent her away.
In some versions of the story, the mother's just dead by the time Hansel and Gretel get back home, and it's just left unexplained. Doesn't seem suspicious in the slightest.
And so they never went hungry again.
And they all got diabetes, I guess.
What makes a story a Hansel and Gretel story?
Hansel and Gretel being in it?
Well, it's not just Hansel and Gretel themselves. In fact, there's nobody by that name in our next fairy tale.
Ah, yes, silly me. Got me again, Pat.
In the land of Syria, people tell the story of a whole family who get kidnapped and somebody tries to fatten them all up and eat them.
So this Syrian story was a bit tricky to find what they were adapting first, as of course it's not originally called the Woodcutter's wealthy sister. It was called Muhammad Ash-Shatar and his sister, the Ogre.
He was a mean and stubborn man. He would never listen to what his wife had to say.
Well, at least we're getting to see an evil mother and father with all these stories.
One day, a rich caravan was passing by.
Oh, brother, how good to see you. You must come to my palace with your whole family.
The woodcutter had no idea who she was. He had no sister, but he couldn't pass up an offer of food and riches.
Nothing suspicious about this. I'd be a fool not to trust my fake sister. In this cartoon, he does at least get his family first so they can eat alongside him over at his fake sister's pad. In the original story, Muhammad Ash-Shatar pigs out alone and the ogre has to remind him, hey, go get your family, dummy. The wife in the original story kinda immediately thinks there's something wrong with this and even says, hey, maybe she's an ogre. But the husband of the year says, nah, we're off to live with my surprise sister. She's on the level because...
The princess wasn't anyone's sister. She was a monster.
Monsters can't be anyone's sister. Kinda odd they changed her from an ogre into a demon-like monster. You think if they were gonna change her into something, it'd be a witch to fit their hungry, hungry witchos theme.
She was fattening up the woodcutter's family so she could eat them.
Gasp. The shock.
She was just about to sneak inside when she felt something grab her backside. It was the woodcutter's cow.
Wow, hero cow to the rescue. In the version of the story I read, though, there was no hero cow, so that's either from another edition or a Britannica edition.
Oh, husband, wake up!
Go back to bed.
You must get up!
Silence.
Honestly, the quicker I'm eaten, the better.
Dear brother, may I kill your cow? No, not our cow.
Oh, shut up, woman.
And so the faithful cow was killed.
Okay, I thought the hero cow might play a bigger part, but nope, it just saves all their lives and then gets killed the next day. Lovely.
Tonight the monster will kill us all, and my husband does nothing to save us.
Go to sleep, stupid wife.
You know, I'm really gonna be so sad when something horrible happens to this guy.
His wife gathered up her 10 children, all their belongings, and left. But the stubborn woodcutter was not so lucky, and he was never heard from again.
Wow, what a story. I love how quick this cartoon version of it was, too. It's just, husband is an idiot and gets killed. The end. In the original story version, the wife catches the ogre tying a rope to one of their daughters during the night to try and pull her in and eat her later. And that's when the wife gathers the kids and leaves. She does try to get the asswipe husband to come with, but he whines about it, so then he gets an incredibly brutal death. The ogre proceeds to eat his limbs off one by one and then asking him how many limbs a camel has, referring to him as the camel and counting it down as it rips off his arms and legs. The ogre then asks the limbless man what she should eat next, and he says, "My ears, the ones I didn't use to listen to my wife with." And he died.
In the Philippines, people tell a story about a boy named Pedro, who thought he would never get away.
Britannica names this story Pedro and the Monster when it was originally called Pedro and the Witch. Were they just going out of their way to make it less like Hansel and Gretel? Aren't they supposed to be alike? Isn't that kind of the point, Britannica? It's also kind of odd they chose this story from the Philippines when there is another from there that seems even closer to Hansel and Gretel named Juan and Maria. In this one, they get kicked out of the house by an evil parent, this time as the father again, because they don't think they have enough supplies. Juan and Maria end up in the woods and meet an old woman, but this time she's nice and doesn't try to eat them. I guess that might be the main reason they didn't use this one. Not enough people wanting to eat kids in it.
Nothing better than children's too.
The story also seems a bit random as Juan hunts a deer who tells him to put his hide in a trunk and he'll turn into golden armor, which Juan uses to win a contest for the hand of a princess. Maria also gets an egg that hatches into a magic rooster that says it'll win all the cockfights. Cockfighting. That could be another reason they want to use this story, though it's not like they don't change these things a lot for these anyway. Juan wanted his sister to live with him at the palace, but the old woman says no because she still wants company. And you think she might have a heel turn here or something, but no, just Maria lives there a bit longer until a prince happens by and wants to marry her, and the old woman's like, yeah, okay, cool. And the moral of the story is, if your parents kick you out of the house, you'll become royalty, I guess?
The land was beautiful, but Pedro stayed inside because he was afraid.
And Pedro had to learn not to be so afraid of everything. Except there is a monster in this story, so I guess he was kind of right to be afraid.
He was afraid that one day he would open the door and there would be a monster on the other side.
Oh, that'll never happen.
There was a knock on the door, and when he opened the door, there was a monster outside.
That's some real setup and payoff right there.
It was Britannica.
Britannica is the main antagonist of the original story as well, and apparently the name is a corruption of the Spanish word for witch, bruja. She did have the wings and horse legs, but she apparently had 4 in the story version, so Britannica is more like a flying centaur.
She ate children.
You look delicious.
You're a magic witch creature. There's gotta be easier ways to get a better meal than this.
She snatched Pedro and flew away with him. She took him to her nest in the mountains.
Britannica's pad has apparently been massively downgraded in this cartoon, as she had an actual house in the original story. And Pedro became her housekeeper for some reason. Maybe it's because he wasn't afraid of her. Which is kind of the opposite of what they keep saying in the cartoon. Britannica kept going out hunting children while Pedro is her housekeeper, so apparently she was feeding him children during this. So Pedro is just a part-time cannibal.
And forced him to eat every bite. Pedro began getting plump.
Just instant fat! Britannica has 2 magic handkerchiefs, a red one that can create fire and a white one that creates water. Though in the original story, it's a talking horse that has these handkerchiefs and warns Pedro that the child food supply is getting scarce and Britannica is planning to eat him next. And that's when Pedro escapes. In the cartoon, he just makes a face and shoves Britannica out of the nest. Kinda odd that they added the hero cow to the Syrian story and then removed the hero horse from the Filipino story.
Pedro ran as fast as he could.
The most impressive part about it, though, was how level his head stayed during the entire run down a mountainside. You'd think after being fattened up in a nest for a while, too, that Pedro wouldn't be that great of a runner.
Britannica summoned more monsters from all over the world.
These were the rejects that even Samhain wouldn't invite to his Halloween shindig. These were originally supposed to be other witches that Barocca invited over for the great Pedro feast. Though I'm not sure how much meat she really thought she's gonna get off Pedro.
Pedro threw down the red handkerchief, and it turned into a fire that burned the wings of the monsters. But they kept on coming.
Well, that's horrifying, and is indeed basically how it originally went, but Pedro dashing away on the horse down the mountain looks a bit cooler.
Pedro threw down the white handkerchief, and it turned into a tidal wave, and all the monsters drowned.
But Pedro was running down the mountain. Wouldn't he be the one that would drown first? The magic handkerchiefs bit reminds me a lot of the magic yarn balls from the Fenchelchen story. Though there they liked burning the witch more than drowning her.
This is Pat Morita, and I don't believe in witches.
I don't believe in no witch! You know what I learned after those stories? That I really hate this stupid purple world. Save me, Pat Morita! He's not coming, is he?
I don't like this movie, doesn't look too friendly. This bootleg is so fake, that toy is gonna break. Phelous, don't let me down, you need to be around. Grab that chocolate pizza, I even like it cause I want. Phelous, oh Phelous, bring on more comedy. Phelous, oh Phelous, an animation movie. Phelous, oh Phelous, what really is so fun? Phelous, oh Phelous, what's your opinion about?
Pedro then turned into an evil sorcerer and literally blew Barocca away.